This story takes place 12 years ago, when I was 9 years old and I was home alone with my 12-year-old brother. We were supposed to go to my aunt's house to have lunch and wait for my mother there. We always did that because we were too young to stay home alone, according to my mom. We got up at 10:30 a.m. I took a shower first, then my brother. After that, we were both in the bathroom brushing our teeth and finishing up, and we heard someone knocking on our door. Since every time someone knocked at our door it turned out to be a salesman or Jehovah's Witness, we kind of waited for them to go away. After a few minutes, I went to see if they were still outside through the window. No one was there. I went back to the bathroom and continued getting ready, and we saw a shadow go by through the bathroom window. The window was like a small square made with the kind of glass that makes everything behind it really blurry. Waited for a while just in case it was a bird flying by. Then a hand hit the window, clear as day. We got scared and didn't know what to do. My brother had his cell phone, so he immediately called the police. While it was ringing, we heard a loud bang at the front door. Someone was trying to knock it down. I don't know if they were kicking or ramming, but it was one of the most frightening things I've ever heard. My brother told me to quickly lock the bathroom door. After about 5 bangs, the perpetrator finally bashed the door down. Then the police picked up the phone. I remember the exact thing my brother said, whispering, "Hello, there's someone in our house. I think they're stealing. I'm with our little brother, locked in our bathroom. Please hurry." While that was going on, I was sitting against the wall, hugging my knees. I could hear the man going through all of our stuff, emptying drawers, going up and down the stairs and opening cabinets. He even broke a few glasses and plates. Then I heard the sound my cell phone does when it turns off, and I remembered leaving it on the kitchen table. Things continued for a couple more minutes when we heard him trying to open the door to the bathroom. My brother got a hold of a big metal rod laying on the floor. The man started kicking the door, yelling who was in there. We said nothing. Another kick, then another. I felt I was about to have an anxiety attack. My chest was starting to ache and I had chills. I tried to remain calm. After he finally stopped, we heard the front door open and then silence. We waited still for 10 minutes before leaving the bathroom. The living room was a total mess, lots of papers and books on the floor. The cabinets were open, broken glass everywhere. In our mother's bedroom, the nightstand and the closet were open, and everything inside them was all over the place. Upstairs in our room, it was the same thing. In about 5 minutes, this man was able to go through everything we had and left our house in a total mess. After that, my brother called my mom. She ordered us to go to my aunt's house right away, so we did. When we got there, I was able to relax a little bit. My aunt was waiting for us with ice cream, probably because my mom told her everything and she wanted to help us calm down. We went back home at about 5 p.m. My mom told her boss she had a home emergency, so she left work early. She tidied up the house, cleaned it, and left everything the way it was so we could be relaxed. I really appreciate her effort and my aunts to calm us down. According to my mom, the police got there after she arrived at 3 p.m., 4 hours after the break-in. She explained everything, but because of lack of evidence, nothing could be done. The man was never caught, and honestly, I don't think they even tried to search for him. For the next few days, my mom stayed home with us. Now I can tell the story as a funny memory. Luckily, no one was hurt, and he only took useless stuff. But at that time, to a 9-year-old, I was terrified. Experience like that can have serious repercussions. Fortunately, it never came to that, and I got over it after a few weeks. I live in the middle of nowhere in Canada, an old town that has quite a few abandoned buildings due to an absence of residents. Me and many friends were tired of the lack of entertainment, so what we did was explore these abandoned buildings. Prior to this experience, we never had anything crazy happen to us. Occasionally, we'd see a small bit of blood-like liquid, and we did see a pentagram on the ground from someone who went to a house previously, but nothing too bad. Until this last time I had gone exploring. When I was younger, I used to go to a daycare that was part of a mental hospital. It closed down due to a lack of patients and lack of children at the daycare. I decided to go back there with my friends a few years ago. I was 15 years old when this happened, and most of my friends were the same age. When we did get there, it was pretty cliche. There was fog, it was dark, and there was a light drizzle of rain. We went to the main gate, which was padlocked shut. We decided to help each other hop over it and made a ton of noise. We were laughing the whole time, unsuspecting of what was to come. We looked around the small play area with flashlights that we brought with us. Even though the flashlights were powerful, our visibility was pretty limited. We decided to enter the decaying building. Glass and dirt crunched under our feet as we stepped into the daycare section of the complex. There were still old Legos, wood chips from previous furniture, old torn dolls and toys strewn about. The further we walked around the daycare section, we naturally became more and more silent, until all we could hear was the crunch of the dirt under our feet. I found some crayons in a plastic container in the corner of the room. I walked over to pick them up when all of a sudden we heard a loud crash coming from behind a metal door leading to the psych ward of the building. My friends and I all looked at each other. As a whole, we were a group of 5. Most of the group was pretty bold and cocky. We all looked and my friend Brian suggested we go to see where the sound came from. Personally, I wasn't too fond of the idea. With my group of friends, there was no way anyone was going to decline such a thing. We all stacked up on the door and opened it. It was rusted to the floor and we heaved to get it open. As we walked in, the metallic smells and must became stronger, with a hint of something else which I couldn't quite put my finger on at that moment. We walked in with our flashlights pointed in every direction, and Brian leading the group. The hallways were tight, and to the left and right were the occasional metal doorway, some with doors open. I felt slightly claustrophobic, and it felt a little hard to breathe. As we continued, Brian shone his flashlight into a room and recoiled. We all stopped walking as Brian slowly entered the room. I asked him what was wrong. He responded he thought he saw someone there, but it was nothing. To be honest, I thought he was just messing with us, but looking back, I think he was telling the truth. He backed out of the room and we continued walking deeper into the psych ward, when another friend swiftly told us to stop. Came to a halt and listened. In the distance ahead of us, we heard the subtle pitter-patter of footsteps echo through the hallway. We all looked at each other with fear in our eyes. Brian continued walking toward the sounds. We considered turning back for a second without him, wondering if some ghost or something was in the building. But we couldn't do that. The closer we got, the more I felt like I was being watched. Finally, we entered a room on the right which had the smell of rotting meat. In front of us was a dead deer. Its innards were spilled all over the floor, staining the concrete. A friend of mine had a very weak stomach and proceeded to vomit all over the floor. That's when we heard whispering from somewhere. Brian shone his flashlight to the corner of the room, where a man with short hair was standing with his head down. He wore a bright green t-shirt stained with what I assumed was blood, and torn beige pants. Didn't have any socks on and his feet seemed damaged. He was twitching sporadically and continued to mumble even after we saw him. We stared at him for a solid 30 seconds before he made his first movement. He looked up at us with a haunting grin that sent shivers down our spine. He asked us if we were here for the feast. This kicked us over the edge. We bolted out of that room all the way back to the daycare center. The door was still open. We decided to try and slam it shut, but the rust and pure weight of the door almost kept it open. It took 3 of us pulling with all of our strength to close it. Just before we did, I could still see the silhouette of the man watching us, his white teeth being the only other human feature I could see.
As we sat behind the metal door catching our breath for a second and looking at each other, we heard a light tapping on the door. That's when we decided it was time to leave. We booked it out of the vicinity completely and ran home. A year after we visited that spot, police went back to do a routine search of the area and they found the same man. It was stated that this guy used to go to the psych ward before it closed down. He escaped the facility he was transferred to and lived off of the wildlife around the complex. When the cops brought him in, he had a series of diseases and sickness from eating raw meat. His mental condition was much worse than before. There were future rumors that he did kill someone in the forest while searching for food, but nothing has been confirmed. I am a fairly fit 22-year-old female. I work for a pretty well-known health club in the northwest of England. I've been on a pretty simple path of self-improvement whilst working part-time and studying at university. Therefore, when my manager asked me if I wanted to do a lifeguard qualification for our poolside, I happily agreed. It was an all-expense paid trip, so I would never have said no. They paid for my travel, which was about an hour away from where I lived. The hotel, the food, and the course. The way the course was set out was pretty normal for a lifeguard course. It was 3 days worth of training, 4 days off. And then I would travel back again for 3 more days, on the third graduating from the course and becoming a lifeguard. The first 3 days were amazing. I found my hotel pretty easily. And although it was in a shady looking area, I did sleep well, and the staff were nothing but helpful. I was hoping to return to the same hotel for my last 3 days. However, the day before I was due to return to do my last 3 days, my manager told me that the hotel was fully booked. He quickly booked me another one which was in the middle of the town center. I looked the hotel up, and the exterior looked creepy, but I thought I may as well give it a chance, since it was only for 2 nights. I went to my first day at lifeguard training as normal, when one of the local girls told me the hotel I was about to stay in had no on-site parking. She also mentioned that all the surrounding car parks were only for short stays, a maximum of 2 hours, and it would be best to leave my car at the training center. She would take me to my hotel and pick me up in the morning to go to training. I thought this was very helpful, thanked her, and took her up on her offer. After finishing for the day, I got into her car and she took me to my hotel. She also mentioned that she used to rent near this hotel, which was a small family-run business and not a chain. It had no room service and no kitchen, so she pointed me in the closest direction to a McDonald's and a Subway. My first night in the hotel, I walked in. The lobby seemed nice, although there was construction in all the surrounding rooms. The girl at the front desk had blonde hair and blue eyes. She greeted me and began to check me in. She smiled and let me know that I had been upgraded, but she didn't know why. I didn't question it. I was just happy to be in the executive suite. She walked me to my room, which was like a maze. You needed a special key card to get to my set of rooms, the executive suites. This meant no random people could walk through the hallway near my room. I felt safe. Upon entering my room, I was amazed. I had never been in something so classy. The room was massive. On the left, there were stairs to the bathroom. There was a balcony, a queen-size bed, a couch, TV with Netflix, and a table full of complimentary water, tea, and biscuits. I relaxed for a bit and suddenly realized how hungry I was and thought I should head to McDonald's before it got dark outside. On the way back from the shop was when it all started to get weird. On my way back was when everything started to get weird. I returned to the hotel and got to the door, which needed the special key to open for the executive suites. There was a man standing outside, dressed in a suit. We looked at each other for a moment before I walked past and scanned the door. I automatically regretted it. The man followed me through, very closely. I'm a very nervous person. I panic at everything, and it drives people crazy. Of course, I panicked at this. I thought better safe than sorry and literally ran to my room, probably looking like a crazy person. However, I turned my head slightly to see that the man had actually kept up to me very well. I started to weep and opened my door extremely clumsily, threw myself in and slammed the door closed. The weirdest bit was that the man actually looked as though he was about to walk inside my room. You're probably thinking, why didn't I call the front desk? Truth is, I don't know. Maybe I should have. But with how the story progresses, I knew it was the right thing to do by not calling the front desk. I'll explain. I eventually calmed myself down, thought about running myself a bath before Love Island started at 9 p.m. I ran the bath, took off my clothes, and sat on the toilet. I left the bathroom door wide open. I had a very nice clear view of the front door. As I stand up to flush, I hear a noise, like the sound of the front door opening. I look up to see that it was opened. I ran to the bathroom door, slammed it shut, and locked it. I sank to the floor and cried. I turned the bath off so I could listen closely to the room outside the door, but heard nothing. I messaged my best friend, who lives in Crete, so even if something did happen, she wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. I sat on the floor for half an hour till my friend convinced me it was all in my head and to check. I let her know the name of the hotel and my room number just in case. I told her if I didn't reply in 5 minutes, no matter what, please call the police. She agreed, and I left the bathroom. Everything looked normal. I checked under the bed, the balcony, closet, everything was fine. Although I tried to lock the front door with the manual lock that are normally on hotel room doors, I found there wasn't one. This freaked me out a bit, but I laughed at myself, grabbed a bottle of water, and drank it and fell asleep. When I woke the next day, I got ready quickly because I overslept. I grabbed the last bottle of water off the desk and ran to meet the girl who was picking me up for training. I forgot about everything that happened the night before. My last night at the hotel was when things got much weirder. I came back relatively early to revise for the assessment the next day. It was about 30 degrees outside, and I had no air conditioning in the room, so I stripped to my underwear. I noticed that none of the complimentary waters had been restocked, so I thought maybe it was just a one-time thing. I revised for maybe 30 minutes, but the heat made me sleepy. I don't even remember falling asleep, but I do remember the sound of the door next to me slam shut, the front door. I felt groggy and didn't open my eyes right away. When I did, it took my eyes a few seconds to adjust. I brushed it off quickly until I sat up straight, my eyes focused on the table, which was now full of complimentary water. It definitely was not there before. Next to me in bed, a random sock that was not mine. One of my socks that I had put in a pair was no longer on the floor, but had gone missing altogether. My mind automatically thought it had to be staff, and therefore I didn't complain to management. This was not a chain hotel, where a creepy employee couldn't be held accountable, but a family-run business. What if I complained that the creep had been doing this? I barricaded myself into the room and barely slept that night. Upon checkout, an elderly man was at the desk who I had only ever seen in passing. He asked if I liked my room. I tried to be polite and told him yes, despite the weird events. He told me that my manager had rang the day before I arrived and decided to give me a quiet room to myself, which he likes to do for younger girls. He then asked me to leave them a good review. I began to feel uneasy again, but had my lifeguard assessment that day, so I pushed it to the back of my mind. I passed with flying colors and drove home. It wasn't until I sat in my own bed that night that the situation hit me. Something wasn't sitting right with me, so I went on the hotel's TripAdvisor website. Something I should have done at the start. 3 separate reviews. Out of the 4 reviews that I read before feeling too sick to continue, 3 of them contained a warning to women. Men were trying to get into their rooms, and staff would walk in unannounced. Even when they were confronted, the staff would deny it. This was when I knew I had not made up what happened. People, or a person, had been coming into my room while I slept, half naked, and stayed for an unknown period of time, stealing my clothing. It still sends chills down my spine just writing this now. I let my managers know, who have made a complaint against the company, but so far nothing has come back. I don't know what else to do about the situation.